Any first century Jew who heard somebody telling a story about a landowner building and planting a vineyard and then having tenants watch over it and then coming looking for fruit would know what this vineyard is. This vineyard is the people of God. This is Israel. That story goes back through a variety of biblical passages, but not least to Isaiah chapter 5. And in Isaiah chapter 5, it's a really sorrowful story because it begins as a love story. Let me sing for my beloved a song concerning his vineyard. But then the vineyard goes wrong. And instead of yielding good grapes, it yields wild grapes. And the prophet said, I looked for justice, but all I heard was people crying. I looked for the world to be made good and right and full of mercy, but all there was bloodshed. Now, Jesus tells the story of the vineyard in this parable in a slightly different way, because there's nothing wrong with the grapes in this story. What's wrong is the tenants who are supposed to be looking after the vineyard and giving the owner the fruit when he wants it. And through this device, Jesus is able to tell the whole story of Israel over again. Actually, quite a few of Jesus' parables do this. They are, as it were, recapitulations of the whole story. It's all rushing together. It's all happening again, right here in front of your very eyes. And Jesus tells the story of Israel, as other wise Jews had done before, in terms of God sending prophets to his people to warn them, to tell them what sort of people they should be. And so Jesus says that's like the owner of the vineyard sending servants to the tenants to get some of the fruit. And each time the tenants say, no, we're not going to do that. We want this to be for ourselves. So here we have this very difficult thing, hard for us to grasp, perhaps, that sense of Jesus recapitulating the story, but saying that the prophets were warning Israel of what they were supposed to be in the purpose of God. Yes, just like Jesus himself in the Sermon on the Mount. You are the light of the world, but you're turning into darkness. You are the salt of the earth, but you're losing your savour. Now you are the tenants of the vineyard, so why aren't you giving God the crop when he's come to ask for it? Because now, last in the line of prophets, comes the Son, the owner's one and only Son. And they say, hey, if we get rid of him, we can have this vineyard for ourselves. This is at the heart of Jesus' critique of his own people, the people whom he loved, that they were trying to be in themselves and for themselves the people that in fact God was going to achieve in and through his only Son. He was the Emmanuel, but they wanted to keep all the promises for themselves. And so Jesus says they will throw the Son out of the vineyard and they will kill him. And when people say, oh, surely not, please, let's not go there, he says, have you never read in the scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected has become the head of the corner. And in his language, as in our language, the word for son and the word for stone were just one letter apart, ben and eben in Hebrew, son and stone in our language. And so Jesus is saying, when this happens, strangely, this will be the means by which God will, in fact, bring in his kingdom. Here we are at the heart of some of the strangest and darkest teaching in the whole gospel. You didn't expect the gospel to be just easy and straightforward, did you? Here it is that we find ourselves faced with the mystery of evil and with God coming, as John says in the prologue to his gospel, he came to his own and his own received him not. But then in the parable we also hear what John goes on to say, as many as received him, as believed in his name, to them he gave the right to become God's children. We read this parable in fear and trembling, and we cling on to the Son who is the stone, so that we can be built into the building which he is building, the new building which is God's kingdom.